I'm Susan Guillory. If you can't tell already, I'm not from Alaska. I'm originally from Louisiana. I've been in Alaska for 2 years. I've been with the VA for a little over 10 years.
Well, I'm a little different. You've already heard me talk. I served 23 years in the Air Force, 23 and a half years in the Air Force. And I'm actually from a small island in southeast Alaska called Kosciuszko. It's north end of Prince of Wales. I thoroughly understand bush communities beyond more than most people would. I'm the Director of Veterans Affairs for the state of Alaska. I'm appointed by the governor, and this is my 4th governor.
My name is Megan James. I'm the Executive Director for the Alaska Coalition for Veterans and Military Families. I'm also not a veteran. My dad was in the Army and he served 20 years. And I've been in this role as Executive Director since last year.
All right, my name's Melody. I'm the Women Veterans Program Manager for the Alaska VA Healthcare System. I've only been in the role for about 7 months as the Program Manager. However, I've been working with veterans for a very long time. I'm a nurse. I'm actually a women's health nurse practitioner, nurse midwife, and was in a nice cushy private practice in Kentucky before getting involuntarily mobilized to Alaska in 2007. So I'm still serving as a reservist. So working with veterans and working with military is very near and dear to my heart as a service member myself. And with the women veterans, I think, given my background in women's health care, it just kind of made sense for me to apply for this job.
So maybe what you could, each of you could answer to, we just kind of came up with some questions, and then I think we'll open up for any questions that people in the audience have as well. But what are some of the hesitancies that you think veterans have in seeking services or help from social workers into their profession?
The fact really is that VA care is consistently rated higher than private care out there, but unfortunately that's not what you hear about. When we talk about mental health, unfortunately the stigma of mental health services, and it continues to be seen by some as being a weakness to come in and ask for help.
And I was going to say, I think a huge part of it is generational, and especially when I look at my women's population, a lot of it's time. You know, they're working. I always said one of the hardest jobs in the world is a working wife and mom because, you know, not to stereotype us, but we have all of the responsibility.
And I think sometimes too is that being a veteran myself, that sometimes it takes a catastrophic event to force them to go in to seek help because they believe it's a weakness, whether it's male or female or not. It doesn't matter when it comes to veterans. Veterans are trained to be an isolated pillar, if you will. And it's a weakness if you have to admit that you have something that you need to talk to someone about. So you don't do it.
I think with our generational differences, we really, we try to work around that by making sure they're assigned to somebody that they can relate to.
Your older veterans want you to be looking at them and
Yeah.
talking to them. The younger ones
Yep.
don't mind that you're on the computer typing.
Yep.
No.
You know, because this is what they're used to. They're used to looking at down. But your older veterans want that one-on-one. Don't be doing something else. Look at me. But then some of the younger ones are going to be uncomfortable with you doing this.
Right. And I think that the best thing that we can do is that we have to recognize the fact that everybody serves equally, and they all go through different, traumatic scenes. The only people the veterans hurt when they don't enroll is themselves and their brothers and sisters. But there is a difference between a combat veteran and a non-combat veteran. You know, the combat veterans tend to pull to each other, and they do have a different reference point, I guess, if you will, than you would if you're a non-combat veteran. And there's not really a lot you can do about that, you know. But everybody does have the same reference point. I try and bring them all back to basic training because everybody knows who their basic training instructor was, no matter what branch of the service you are. They generally, a lot of veterans, whether they're combat veterans or not, like you brought up the missile crews, will take sleeping pills when they're off. When they're on, they're awake continuously. The problem with veterans is that when you're on active duty, you know, if I worked for Lockheed Martin and I fell asleep on duty, I just lose my job or they take money away from me. If you fall asleep when you're in the military, you go to prison. So you don't really get that option fallen asleep on duty.
And another area that comes up frequently too is technology and the ability for people, like while you're deployed now. It used to be when you were deployed, you had letters, you had maybe a phone
Email.
call once every
Yep.
3 months or whatever. And now people are still in their lives here and they're in their lives there, and their spouses have expectations of them while they're deployed.
Yeah.
Partners, and so that is another thing that's really shifted and changed as far as what, people experience in those combat zones.
I say to the new social workers coming on board and to the students, you can know the DSM backwards and forwards. You can have a wall full of certificates that you are an expert in this and that. But if you don't build rapport and a trusting relationship with that individual, none of that matters. And I always say you have to be authentic and be yourself. Don't worry about speaking what the seasoned social workers there speak. Don't worry about asking the questions exactly like they are. You have to be authentic and sincere, because they're going to see through it, and then they're not going to trust you to talk to you.
I only have one goal, and that is every veteran that I have in the state, actually every veteran I have in the nation, receives every benefit that they've earned. That's the only thing, I know that sometimes when I speak before Congress, they always say, well, this is going to cost too much. My answer always is stop making veterans. If you don't want to take care of them, don't make them. Stop the wars, bring everybody home, shut it all down.
The most important takeaway is we are able to have the lives that we have today because of these men and women, and take the time, hear their story, listen to what they have to say, don't interrupt, let them talk, and then work with them on whatever the issues are that you can address. I just want to make sure that my veterans have the time, because they have earned it more than anybody else that I work with. They have earned their time to take up as much time as you need from me today, because you earned it.
I think the most important part about taking care of veterans is to realize that not all of them are this hardened human, and that they have, that they're, especially from the social work aspect, they're coming to you for a reason. And sometimes it takes a little bit to break that down.
To remember that you are working with individuals who have a very unique experience that most of the population do not have.